Good morning once again. I am Karen Ramo. I am your MC and co-moderator for today's economic briefing and general membership meeting of the Management Association of the Philippines. We would like to encourage everybody to take their seats as we prepare to start our program. We have a very long program today, so we need to start this very early. On behalf of the MAP Board of Governors, I would like to call this MAP Economic Briefing and General Membership Meeting to order. Please rise for the invocation. Then please remain standing for the Philippine National Anthem. Let us first bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, as we gather for this MAP Economic Briefing and General Membership Meeting, we come before you in humility and gratitude for your guiding hand over our nation. Bless our guest speaker and reactors with wisdom, strength, and good health, that they may continue to advocate reforms that uplift our people and our country. Grant our national and local leaders discernment and integrity as they navigate our economic challenges, that their decisions may be rooted in genuine concern for a better Philippines. Give us the strength to overcome adversity, the wisdom to pursue innovation with fairness, and the resolve to build an economy that fosters shared prosperity. Protect the vulnerable, that no one may be left behind in the pursuit of this progress. Instill in us hope, resilience, and courage as we face the challenges before us. All this we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang mag-ibig, pero sa silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Upang hinirang, kuya ka ng mag-ibig, sa mandulubig, di ka pasisigil, sa nagalang tutok sa simulan, sa langit ang pagaw, ay nilagang tula, awit sa pagkayang minamahal, ang isang lang matawad ko'y tagumpay na nag-iibig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang ay di masitigil. Lumagang araw ng buwan, habit pagsinta, buhay langit sa pilis mo. Ang higaya ng pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
For the President's report, may I call on the President of the Management Association of the Philippines, who is also the President and COO of Dito CME Holdings Corporation. Please welcome Dr. Donald Lim.
Our guest speaker, who's still downstairs, Governor Eli Remolona, our reactors, Mr. June Neri and Mr. Dan Roses, our guests from the government, the diplomatic community, the academe, and the media, fellow MAP members, dear friends, good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of the MAP Board of Governors, it is my honor to warmly welcome all of you to this MAP Economic Briefing and General Membership Meeting. We begin each year with an economic briefing because foresight is a responsibility of leadership. In an increasingly complex and volatile environment, the MAP provides this platform so our members can sharpen their forecasting tools, strengthen judgment, and make better, more responsible business decisions. These briefings are not simply about numbers and projections. They are about understanding where our country is headed, discerning the opportunities and risks before us, and prepare ourselves as leaders to respond with clarity, courage, and competence. As I share in my inaugural address last month, our theme for 2026 is Leadership in Action, Lifting the Nation. This theme reflects a clear conviction that leadership must now move decisively from intention to execution, from discussion to delivery, and from excellence in principle to excellence that tangibly improve lives. In line with this, MAP will pursue three strategic thrusts this year: strengthening unity and collaboration for collective impact, future-proofing through innovation, technology, and next-generation leadership, and taking on a more dynamic role in national development and ASEAN leadership. These thrusts are not abstract aspirations. They are calls to action anchored on relevance, urgency, and national responsibility. Today, we also induct the chairs and vice chairs of our 27 MAP committees for 2026, leaders who will carry much of this vision forward. These committees are organized into 4 strategic clusters: championing leadership and governance, co-creating a future-ready economy and enterprise, uplifting people and communities, and enhancing the Philippines' global positioning and platforms. Each cluster is guided by 2 governors in charge to ensure focus, coordination, and alignment. Committees under each cluster will convene to determine programs that directly support our strategic thrusts. Chairs and vice chairs will represent their committees in the initial cluster meetings to define how their collective work will contribute to a shared outcome. Each cluster is expected to deliver at least 1 flagship output within the year, an initiative marked by multi-sectoral collaboration, multi-committee participation, and clear national impact. Together, these outputs will form MAP's 2026 Program of Action. Over the years, the MAP has built strong credibility, trusted relationships, and respected visibility, anchored on its mission of management excellence. We honor that foundation deeply. But the demands of our time now call for sharper focus, faster execution, and clearer national relevance. Let me be clear. No advocacy is being abandoned. No contribution is being diminished. What we are doing now is reframing the scale of our work, the coherence of our voice, and the visibility of our impact. We are starting tight so that we can move fast, build credibility, and expand with proof. And that's why we reorg a bit our committees across each cluster. We are shifting from committee-centric efforts to focused action clusters, from activity-based participation to output-based contribution, and from good intentions to visible national results. The MAP has always worked through dedicated committees doing meaningful work, but the times now has compelled us to ask a deeper question. Are our efforts merely active, or are they truly transformative at national scale? These clusters would allow us to align, converge, and deliver together. We now move not as separate committees, which we have been doing for the past many years, but as one national force for excellence in action. Because excellence is not only about bold ambition, it is about disciplined, humane execution. If we do this right, excellence will no longer be something we simply speak about. It will be something the nation can see, feel, and benefit from. I therefore encourage all our committees to plan and organize your work in ways that directly support our strategic thrusts and enable even time-constrained MAP members to contribute meaningfully to national outcomes through fast activation, high visibility, clear wins, stronger collaboration, and convergence. So guys, not too many committee meetings and brainstorming. Let's all move because we all have 1 year to execute, right? It's all aligned under one clear national direction: leadership in action, lifting the nation. so that every project that we undertake will answer one fundamental question: how does this uplift the nation and the Filipino people? On the screen are our forthcoming MAP activities. I encourage everyone to please block off your calendars. March 18 would be our big GMM. It's our MAP GMM on ASEAN. So the theme is ASEAN in a realigning world, building regional cohesion through business leadership and global partnership. So forgive me if I try to put everything together, but the March GMM is a longer GMM from 11:30 to around 3 o'clock. We will have 3 panels, right? Rather than just one speaker, and usually you have a panel, but that we will have various ASEAN, from the ambassadors to our, hopefully we get the Deputy Director General, no? And we'll also have some people from the global sphere to speak with us, no? So in the end, 11:30 to 1:30, no? So it's 11:30 to 3, no? April 8 is our MAP GMM on ease of doing business, and also our third MAP summit on shared prosperity. 22nd, 23rd, we go to Cebu, and we will have our GMM in Cebu. May 13 would be our MAP GMM on building and sustaining national resilience. May 15 is our MAP Golf Cup for CSR, and June 25, MAP KPMG Technology Summit 2026. We are just at the tip of the iceberg. As of this morning's board meeting, we actually identified much more. So in my next update to all of you, in the next GMM, you will see more of these activities coming, no? But again, we always want to emphasize the quality, not quantity, and I hope that each committee is carried by that. One big project tayo, no? And we get to really provide a national impact. So for details, please continue to monitor our Viber and email inboxes, visit the MAP website, and read the MAP memo, our weekly electronic newsletter, no? That somehow, no, hopefully it gets into your system and you get to appreciate it. So again, thank you for your support. We have a long day today, long GMM. I'll have everyone get through it. Thank you also for your commitment, especially the cluster heads and the committee chairs. Together, let us turn leadership into action, and action into lasting national impact. So good afternoon and welcome to this GMM.
Thank you, President Donald. Indeed, very good question to ask ourselves before we leave this room. How does your committee uplift the Filipino people at the end of the day? So how is 2026 going to be different from the rest of the years? We will be action-based, output-centered, and very much nationally impactful. At this point, we will have now the CAMAX time. The CAMAX is MAP's campaign against malnutrition and child stunting. May I call on the chair of the MAP CAMAX committee, past president of MAP and the founding partner and CEO of Dubaladad and Associates, or BDB Law, Attorney Dick Dubaladad.
Good afternoon, everyone. A call to action, lifting the nation. And so, because malnutrition is not just a health issue, but an economic one, we are back again with the full support of the current board that CAMAX, or Campaign Against Malnutrition and Child Stunting, be one of the flagship projects for this year. And we were able to get a go signal that every GMM, they will allocate 10 minutes for CAMAX, for our project to prosper, and for the projects that we have out there to be pitched in front for all of you to embrace. And recently, the statistics are very encouraging. When we started with CAMAX, the rate is for every 3 kids, 5 years old and below, 1 is stunted. In short, it's about 33.3% stunted rate. Now, the latest figure would show that 1 out of 4 is stunted. That's about 23% based on the latest statistics. It is very encouraging, and that encourages us more to do something about this. It is possible. It is not impossible, and we can do this. So as a first speech, may I now call on Chelly Jimenez, the Project Director for Gulayan sa Paaralan.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shelly Jimenez from the BDB Law Foundation. Thank you for the opportunity to present Project BDB. So before I get into the specifics, let me frame the broader challenge we're addressing: adequate nutrition for Filipino families. For many children in public schools, especially those located in provinces, the meals they receive during feeding programs at school may be the most nutritious meal they consume. These are students from households where income constraints limit access to fresh, nutrient-dense food. And we know that nutrition directly affects cognitive development, classroom attention, and learning outcomes. This is not just a feeding issue. It's a human capital issue. When children are adequately nourished, they learn better. When they learn better, they eventually become more productive members of the society and the workforce. The investment we make in school nutrition today compounds across generations. Project BDB, or the Duyan ng Buhay project, is our foundation's response to this challenge. We established sustainable school gardens at public elementary schools that serve two functions. First, producing fresh vegetables for the school-based feeding program, addressing immediate nutritional needs. And second, functioning as a hands-on educational program where students learn agriculture and nutrition, building long-term food security skills. The model has been validated through a successful pilot and is ready for nationwide scale using a standardized implementation kit at 100,000 pesos per school. With this in mind, let's dive deeper into the program's details. So the twin gaps. At the school level, we see two operational gaps. The nutrition gap, where the school-based feeding programs require constant fresh produce. Current sourcing depends on external vendors and donations, creating supply volatility and quality inconsistency. And then we have the skills gap. Standard curricula lack hands-on agricultural education. Students learn basic theory but remain disconnected from food systems and that sustain them and from agricultural livelihoods that remain vital to our economy. Project BDB addresses both. The schoolyard becomes a productive food hub and an interactive learning and living classroom. Each installation includes vegetable production plots, vertical gardens for space efficiency, a plant nursery, composting facilities, a harvest-to-table preparation area, educational signage, and student documentation materials called Kwentong Gulay. We call this initiative Duyan ng Buhay, or the Cradle of Life. It's a comprehensive approach to establishing and scaling the Gulayan sa Paaralan project, or the school gardening program. The model rests on 4 pillars. Nutrition, where fresh produce for school feeding programs. Education, hands-on agricultural literacy integrated into the curriculum. Community, parent and volunteer engagement in garden operations. And sustainability, waste management and circular resource systems that allow the garden to regenerate itself. These 4 pillars work together. The garden feeds students, educates them, involves their families, and sustains over time. We have translated these pillars to achievable objectives. Sustainable nutrition, cultivating vegetables to support learners' dietary needs. Hands-on learning, integrating agriculture and environmental science into the curricula. Values formation, promoting hard work, teamwork, and environmental stewardship. And community engagement, involving parents, teachers, and local stakeholders in garden operations. The pilot at Behia Elementary School in the Quezon Province validated our model. Let me highlight what made it successful. Adequate funding structure. The 100,000 peso budget proved sufficient to establish a complete functional garden within the school's available space. Expert partnership. A partnered agricultural expert was with the school every step of the way, from establishing the garden to conducting regular monitoring visits, troubleshooting issues, and providing hands-on education to students and teachers. Operational integration. The garden has incorporated into the school's science and economics and livelihood education curriculum. Harvests are channeled directly to the feeding program, reducing external procurement dependency. And community buy-in. Parents and teachers participate in rotational maintenance, creating shared ownership. Next slide. Okay. So we have moved past the experimental phase. The Project BDB model now utilizes a standard implementation kit and training curriculum that enables rapid, consistent replication across schools. A key design principle of Project BDB is that this does not operate in isolation. We engage stakeholders at two levels and each serves a distinct purpose. The Department of Education identifies partner schools and facilitates curriculum integration. This alignment ensures our work contributes to national education objectives, not just isolated interventions. And we are currently seeking a partnership with the Department of Agriculture to provide seeds and seedlings through existing distribution programs. This leverages government resources, reduces our input costs, and aligns with national food security programs. Parent-teacher associations, barangay officials, and local volunteers provide ongoing engagement, accountability, and maintenance. This is critical for sustainability. External funding establishes the garden, but local ownership ensures it continues to operate year after year. This two-level structure means that Project BDB contributes to broader government programs while remaining grounded in community-level execution. We're building an ecosystem, not a dependency. So the investment per school is 100,000 pesos, allocated as follows. 70,000 goes to infrastructure, 10% or 10,000 pesos goes to watering systems, 10,000 goes to local labor for construction, and 5,000 pesos each for tools and safety equipment and organic fertilizers and compost starter. We track performance through quantifiable metrics: weekly garden logbooks by class, monthly photo documentation, school-based feeding program harvest records, and student learning outputs through reflection journals. The long-term sustainability is built into this model. Curriculum integration, gardens become part of school improvement plans, shared ownership, the rotational maintenance across grade levels, community partnership, engagement with parents, LGUs, and civic organizations, and resource circularity. On-site composting eliminates recurring fertilizer costs. So we offer 3 engagement structures for Project BDB. The first model is centralized. The donor transfers funds to BDB Law Foundation with a minimal 15% administrative fee, and the foundation manages school selection, procurement, and implementation. Deliverables include implementation plans, monthly progress reports, photo documentation, and final evaluation. Model 2 is the matched partnerships. Foundation matches donor with a vetted school, and the school manages the funds directly, suitable for donors seeking a direct institutional relationship. And lastly, we have direct coordination. The donor nominates a specific school and manages implementation. The foundation provides advisory support and the standardized implementation kit. Okay, next slide. So, to summarize, 100,000 establishes one complete school garden ecosystem. 500,000 enables a 5-school regional development, and 1 million supports a 10-school initiative. Pooled contributions and partial commitments are also very much welcome. Let me close by returning to the bigger picture. Project PDB is fundamentally about two things: adequate nutrition, ensuring children have access to fresh, healthy food at school, and food security at grassroots level, teaching the next generation how to grow their own food. When we invest in a child's nutrition, we invest in their ability to learn. When we teach them to farm, we give them skills that last a lifetime. Together, these investments contribute to a robust human capital, the foundation of long-term national development. This is a tested and scalable model. The infrastructure remains, the curriculum integrates, the community maintains, and your investment creates a self-sustaining school asset. I invite MAP members to consider how this aligns with your organization's CSR initiatives. We welcome the opportunity to discuss partnership. From the BDB Law Foundation, thank you, and our team is always available for questions.
Thank you very much, CAMAX Committee. We are now inserting a presentation on TESDA's Enterprise-Based Education and Training, or EBET, which can be a convergence program of MAP clusters and committees. Participating companies can avail of incentives like scholarships, tax incentives, and donor tax exemption. To tell us more about this enterprise-based education and training, may I call on the Deputy Director General for TVET Partnerships and Linkages of the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or TESDA. Please welcome DDG Nelly Nita Diliera.
Good afternoon. 10 minutes. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Okay, let me start with this statement, which I think all of you are very much aware and actually in practice. Workforce competitiveness depends on how quickly we can turn learning into measurable skills. That's right inside the enterprises. Today, companies who intentionally develop their workforce from within using structured, industry-aligned programs are the ones gaining advantage. They see higher productivity, stronger retention, and a workforce that can produce faster than the competition. And that is exactly what the enterprise-based education and training is all about. So what exactly is EBET, or enterprise-based education and training? As shown on the screen, it's a structured technical and vocational training. I'm from TESDA, so it's between the basic education and tertiary education. So we provide programs under technical and vocational training. But for EBET, I think what's more important and significant is that it's carried out in the enterprises themselves, in coordination, of course, with TESDA and other relevant stakeholders, because we wanted to specify and identify the very skills and competencies that your training programs would like to achieve. So these programs aim to equip trainees with practical, industry-relevant skills through hands-on learning in actual or simulated. Okay, to move further, EBET is business-driven. It's a business-driven workforce development model where enterprises, companies train employees based on real operational needs. So meaning, based on the gaps that you identify among the workforce that you have in your company are also the same training programs that we will be supporting, which you wanted to implement. Another good thing about this is credentialing. Learners earn national certificates and are ladderized, boosting employability. So meaning the certificate that they acquire from TESDA will eventually be recognized in the higher educational institution because of the Philippine Credit Transfer System, as well as the ladderized program that we're implementing right now across the trifocal agencies in the government. Also, government recognition programs are formally registered and recognized. So whatever programs that your HR is implementing can actually be recognized now by TESDA after some adjustments maybe in terms of identifying the skills and competencies. Of course, next would be access to resources, the technical support, curriculum guidance, and even subsidies. This might not be something of interest to you, but we're also providing incentives in terms of scholarships. Okay, you may have heard about the vouchers, the scholarships that we're providing. Actually, it's this year that TESDA was able to get or receive the biggest budget in terms of scholarship. And we're really rolling this out, and we're really reaching out to companies like you to tap this particular resource to train the workforce for workforce development. Or we can provide tax incentives. Right now, 50% of the total training cost 50% of the total training cost can actually be deductible from your taxable income. And the donor's tax exemption is also another thing that you can benefit from EBET. Okay, how does it work? Simple. Step 1, the enterprises designs the program, or TESDA will adapt whatever program that you have right now, provided that it's specified the skills and competencies that you want to deliver, and we want our workforce to learn. Many companies already have internal training. EBET simply upgrades it to regional or national standards. Step 2, TESDA validates and registers the program. We help refine the curriculum, align it to competency standards, and ensure it meets quality requirements. And then step 3, employees or learners undergo training. It can be apprenticeship, it can be on-the-job training, or it can be upskilling, meaning targeting your own workforce for EBET. Training happens inside your facilities, on your equipment, and at your pace. And step 4, learners undergo assessment and receive certification. This results in national certificates, formal, portable, and industry recognized. And finally, step 5, the company gains a trained, certified workforce that directly contributes to productivity, efficiency, and competitiveness. EBET or EBET is designed to be simple, aligned to business operations, and fully supported by the government. Why this matters? First, cost efficiency. Hiring new people is expensive. Training existing staff using a model that is subsidized and recognized is far more sustainable. Second, talent retention. Employees stay longer when they feel valued. When their training is nationally certified, and engagement and loyalty go up. And third, brand and CSR. Companies that participate in EBET become known as champions of workforce development. And most importantly, enterprise impact. Better trained employees make fewer mistakes, produce higher quality work, and adapt faster to changes in technology and the market. In short, better skills equals better business. Okay, these are just some information or data that we'd like to show you right now. In 2025, alone, over 783 enterprises already registered more than 1,500 programs under EBET. But looking at the figures or statistics that we have right now, we have, I think, 1.2 million enterprises in the country, so 783 is actually very small. So we're calling on your doors to please open your doors and register your programs under the EBET. Anyway, this tells us one thing: the business sector is moving fast toward enterprise-based training as a competitive strategy. Companies are not waiting. They are building their own training ecosystem with TESDA as their partner. So those are actually the figure. We have already produced 65,089. And in terms of the 3 different programs or modality that TESDA has, institution-based, community-based, and enterprise-based education and training, EBET generated the highest employment rate, which was registered at 87%. So we're actually going towards training to trabajo or training to employment. Okay, finally, we invite you to join this movement. We're showing you the QR code of the playbook. So it's accessible and provide you everything you need, from guidelines, the templates, the requirements, and examples from other enterprises. You can start registering your programs today. The process is straightforward, and TESDA is here to support you at every step. Actually, we're hand-holding the IBPAP right now, meaning we help them they identify the enterprises that wanted to participate in the EBET, but we handheld them until they reach the point of registering their programs and ready to run their respective training. So let me close this with this. Turn your company into a recognized center for skills development. Grow your people, grow your business. And together, let's grow our nation's competitiveness. Thank you very much po, and magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you, Didi, Ginelli. Definitely you're in the right place to promote EBET, you bet. We are now at the part where we'll be inducting the MAP committee chairs and vice chairs for 2026. Okay. We will request each chair and vice chair to come up the stage as her name is called. And we will be calling your names a little bit fast so that we can have our photo op and be on time. We'll start with the MAP Cluster 1, championing leadership and governance. Accountability and Transparency or ACT, Chair Rene Almendras and Vice Chair Lilia de Lima. So kindly go up on stage. Ethics, Chair Alex Cabrera and Vice Chair Babe Singson. Governance, Chair JJ Moreno, Co-Vice Chair Manny Liz Bona, Co-Vice Chair Ida Chongson. Management Person of the Year or MPY Surge, Chair Al Panlilio, Vice Chair Rene Almendras. MPY Judging Chair Say Titanco and Vice Chair again Lilia de Lima. Membership, Chair Al Panlilio, Co-Vice Chair Rene Almendras, Co-Vice Chair for Luzon Mike Makatangay, and Co-Vice Chair for Visayas and Mindanao Melanie Nang. For National Issues, Chair Al again and Vice Chair Rene Almendras. And Nomination and Election, Chair Tammy Lipana and Vice Chair Malu Cristobal. Okay, we'll be helping you on our photo arrangement setup on stage. For MAP Cluster 2, Co-Creating Future-Ready Economy and Enterprises, Agribusiness Committee, Chair Toto Barcelona, Co-Vice Chair Danny Fausto, and Co-Vice Chair Oscar Toralba. Ease of Doing Business, Chair Ira Pozon and Vice Chair Roy Moreno. For Energy, we have Chair Ronald Valles, Co-Vice Chair Eric Francia, and Co-Vice Chair Ruth Yu Owen. Environment, Co-Chair Riza Goyeneche, and Co-Chair Chief Juan and Vice Chair Reggie Casas. Tax, Chair Carol Roselis and Vice Chair Yuni Mata Perez. Technology, Co-Chair Bong Paloma, Co-Chair Teddy Sumulong, Co-Vice Chair Mark Goriseta and Co-Vice Chair Jelaine Manrique. And Transportation and Infrastructure, Chair Eddie Yap, Co-Vice Chair Stan Nang, and Co-Vice Chair Gleister Sikat. As you can see, MAP is a working committee body, so the more committees we have, the more we can achieve for 2026. For MAP Cluster 3, Uplifting People and Communities, Arts and Culture, Chair Cory Purisima, Vice Chair Tony Lambino. Hamax Committee, Chair Dick Dubaladad, Co-Vice Chair Karen Batungbakal, Co-Vice Chair Chel Habito, and Co-Vice Chair Alma Jimenez. Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, or DEI, Co-Chair Agnes Gervasio, Co-Chair Deliza Rediloso, and Vice Chair Nikki Tang. Education, Co-Chair Sister Merceditas Ang, Co-Chair Tata Medado, and Vice Chair Diana Montinola. Health, Chair Gerald White, Co-Vice Chair Pia Acevedo, Co-Vice Chair Carmi De Leon. Next Gen Co-Chair Donna Lina, Co-Chair Natalia Peña, and Vice Chair Carla Laos. Shared Prosperity, may we call on Chair Ben Tihanki, Co-Vice Chair June Kabotchan, and Co-Vice Chair Joanne Kopua. And Sports, Fellowship, and Wellness, Chair Eva Tan, Co-Vice Chair Rak Kagurangan, and Co-Vice Chair Peng Perez de Tagle. And this is our last chapter for MAP Cluster 4, Enhancing the Philippines' Global Positioning and Platforms. CEO Conference Chair Alma Jimenez, Co-Vice Chair Michael Albania, Co-Vice Chair Junie Del Mundo. Communications, Co-Chair Gil Chua, Co-Chair Karen Remo, Vice Chair Malin Molina, and Internal Relations, Chair Dick Dubaladad, Vice Chair Junie Del Mundo, and Trade, Investment and Tourism, Chair Junie Del Mundo, Co-Vice Chair Cliff Ayala, and Co-Vice Chair Alma Jimenez. To lead the induction of our 2026 MAP Committee Chairs and Vice Chair, I'd like to call on stage our inducting officer, our President, Donald Dean.
Okay, good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, here you go. No? These are the committee chairs and vice chairs. Currently, MEP has 27 committees under the 4 clusters. Due to the solemnity of this event, and we take this very seriously, I would like to request all MAP members to please stand up and witness this moment. Okay. Committee chairs and vice chairs, raise your hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Having been appointed to the position of, state your position, of the Management Association of the Philippines, hereby solemnly pledge that I will discharge well and faithfully, to the best of my ability, the duties of my position, and help pursue MAP's mission of promoting management excellence for nation building. So help me God. Okay, congratulations, and let's get to work. Thank you.
For the presentation of new MAP members for induction, I'd like to call on the Vice Chair of MAP Membership Committee and MAP Past President, Secretary Rene Almendras.
Thank you, Karen. Please indulge me. I do not mean to be disrespectful, but I will rattle off the names as fast as I can in the interest of time. Let's hold our applause until I call everyone. Our first inductee is Ms. Ana Marie Concepcion Chiti G. Abanyo, the CFO Corporate Secretary of the Manila Hearing Aid Center, line of business, Hearing Care Services, sponsored by Mr. Al Panlilio and myself. We call on Attorney Alessandra Faye V. Albarico, Chief Legal Officer of NTT Limited Philippines, line of business, IT Consulting, Technology Services, sponsors Mr. Roy Moreno and Attorney Dick Dubaladad. I call on Dr. Stuart A. Bennett, President and Group CEO of the Medical City, line of business, healthcare, sponsors Ms. Boots Garcia and Ms. Rak Kagurangan. I call on Engineer Gerardo Jerry de la Cruz, the Vice President for Marketing and Sales of Asalus Corporation or IntelliCare, line of business, HMO, sponsors Ms. Carmi De Leon and myself. I call on Attorney Mona Lisa C. De Malanta, Senior Partner of PJS Law, line of business, legal services, sponsors Ms. Ruth U. Owen and Attorney Ira Puzon. Next is Mr. Peter George Polheber, President and CEO of TransUnion Philippines, TransUnion Information Solutions Philippines. Line of business, credit rating services. Sponsors, Ms. Cory Porissima and Mr. Al Panlivio. Next is Mr. Kyle Gabriel D. Gaisano, Vice President of Vixal Investment, Line of Business Investment House, sponsored by Mr. Frank Gaisano and Mr. Al Panlivio. We call on Ms. Clarissa Ada Cortez Hernandez, COO of Electronic Transfers and Advanced Processing Incorporated, ETAP Inc., line of business, manufacture and development of self-service machines and integrated payment systems. Sponsors, Mr. Gil Henyo and Ms. Cindy Burdett. We call on Attorney Emma Malu Yu Lim, co-managing partner of Baniged and Bello, line of business, legal services. Sponsors, Attorney Carlos Baniged and Mr. Al Panlivio. Next is Mr. Robert Gerard B. Nepomuceno, President and CEO of Raslag Corporation, line of business, solar energy. Sponsors, Ms. Ida Tiongson and Mr. Al Panlivio. Then we call on Attorney Jules B. Reggio, tax leader of SGB and Company, line of business, auditing, tax transaction, advisory services, sponsored by Mr. Wilson Tan and Mr. Al Panlivio. And finally, we call on Dr. Raymond Francis Sarmiento, COO of Metro Pacific Health Tech Corporation, MWell, line of business, health and wellness. Sponsors, Ms. Rak Kagurangan and Ms. Emma Tesalona. At this point, may I call on the MAP President, Mr. Donald Grimm, to induct our new members. And again, may we ask everyone to please rise for the solemnity of the proceedings.
Thank you, Secretary Rene. So, as you know, it's not easy, to be a member, as most of you know. You don't apply, right? You go through a rigorous process from the committee to the board to the entire membership before you accept it. So I hope that once you become a member, you also become active in all the committees. Okay? So again, for new members, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do hereby solemnly pledge that I will perform well and faithfully, to the best of my ability, my duties as a regular member, in order to contribute to the achievement of the objectives of the Management Association of the Philippines. So help me God. Okay, congratulations and welcome to the MAP.
Okay, the moment we're all waiting for. Thank you, Secretary Rene and President Donald. Congratulations to the new MAP members. Let us welcome and give another warm of applause to the new MAP members. Thank you so much for being with us. In line with the MAP policy and in the interest of time, we will dispense with a lengthy induction of our speaker and reactors. Their profiles will be flashed on the screen. I'd like to remind our speaker that you have 20 minutes for your presentation and 5 to 7 minutes or 5 minutes to our reactors. Let us now listen to our speaker, the Governor of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or BSP, who is also a member of the MAP. Please welcome Governor Eli Remolona Jr.
Magandang hapon po. I'm so glad to be a member of the MAP, and Donald has assured me that I'm up to date on my membership dues. I wanted to talk a little bit about the outlook, partly because that's what I'm expected to talk about, but I also want to talk also about what we're trying to do to make monetary policy more effective. So that part might be a bit too nerdy, but I think it's useful for the MAP membership to know about it. In terms of the outlook, we have good news and we have bad news. The good news is inflation. At the BSP, our mandate is price stability. And that mandate we have achieved. Inflation has been coming down. It peaked at 8.7% in January 2023. It came down to around 1%. And we project that it will hover around 3% over the next 2 years. 3% is our target. And then we have a tolerance band around 3%, which is 1% on each side. Although for me, I don't mind too much if inflation falls below 3%. Falls to 2%, falls to 1.5%, okay lang sa akin yun. I worry more when it goes up beyond 3%. So we've achieved that so far, and even more important to us is that for the bottom 30% of households, inflation is even lower than it is for the average. So that's the good news. The bad news, of course, is our growth has stalled. Although it hasn't stalled as much as you would think, because the way we've computed our growth rates, we count expenditures. There's an expenditure approach in what's called national income accounting. And when we count expenditures, it looks like we had very high growth rates in 2023 and 2024. But when we realize that not all that money actually went into investment or consumption, a lot of it went into cash that was stored in people's basements, then we have to adjust the numbers. And when we make that adjustment, it looks like we exaggerated our growth rate in the past 2 years. And so if we compute our growth rate in 2025, it was bad, but not as bad as it looked. So we're saying now that actually we didn't decline to 4.4%. We declined to 4.7%. So it's a little better than what we thought, but it's still a decline. So that's the bad news. Our growth has stalled, and as you know, it stalled mainly because of a loss of confidence, especially in the second half of 2025. So consumption of big ticket items fell, consumption of investment fell. And then, most tellingly, the public infrastructure spending in the second half of 2025 fell. So we're down to 4.7%. Compared to most other countries, 4.7% is pretty good. But compared to our potential, 4.7% is pretty bad. The big risk going forward, of course, is whether we can bring confidence back. There are signs that confidence is coming back, tentatively, slowly. When we look at some indicators, and one of the best indicators of that is when we do a survey of supply chain managers. The blue line and the yellow line are two different surveys of the same thing, but the blue line at least has gone up. When that number exceeds 50%, then we're okay. So the blue line, which is the bigger survey, has gone above 50%. The yellow line is still below 50%. If you look at the yields on the bonds that we issue, the GS bonds that are issued by the Bureau of the Treasury, the yields have been coming down. That's a sign of confidence. That's a sign of confidence. As of February 2026, the 10-year yield was 5.95%. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So that's at least the investors in those bonds have some confidence. The stock market, as you know, the index fell, but the index has since recovered, as you can see in the graphs. The broken line, by the way, is July, so that's when the confidence crisis started. So it looks like it's beginning to come back, not as fast as we would like, but it's coming back. And in our projections, we think that we will be back to normal by the second half of 2026. So that's the outlook. Another piece of good news is when you look on the side of financial stability, we're in very good shape. The banks have very high capital buffers. In other words, if there's a big loss, they can cover it. And they also have high liquidity buffers, which means that if there's a run on that bank, there's a run on deposits, there's enough liquidity in our banks to cover that. And then finally, when we look at our balance of payments, and we've been through several balance of payments crises, but this time we have ample exchange reserves, $112.5 billion in exchange reserves. The standard for saying ample reserves is whether you have enough for 3 months of imports. We have enough for 8 months of imports. Then another standard is whether you have enough to pay to cover your short-term debt. We have 3 times that amount. So in terms of exchange reserves, we're okay. So that's the outlook. There's good news and there's bad news, but I'm optimistic that the bad news will go away and then we'll be back on track by 2020. This year, we'll be back on track this year. We have a project at the BSP which is to make the monetary transmission mechanism more effective. As you know, when we do monetary policy, we have, I would say, 1.5 tools. One tool is the policy rate, but the other tool is what we say about what will happen to the policy rate. I would count that as half a tool. So maybe we have 1.5 tools for monetary policy, for making sure that we have price stability. The policy rate, as you can see in the graph, it goes through the money market, and the forward guidance goes through the bond market in terms of yields. In the money market, we were very surprised when we did a careful survey of which parts of the market are most active. We found out that the most active part of our money market is not the interbank call market, which we had assumed all along was the most active part. Hindi pala. The most active part of the money market today is the FX swap market. In other words, if you need peso liquidity, you need dollars as collateral in an FX market. That's kind of weird, that's kind of strange. In other jurisdictions, in other economies, the most active part of the money market is usually the repo market. We had a repo market, 20 years ago, and it died. We don't know why it died. But globally, the standard contract for a repo is called the JIMRA contract. The global, the global, I forget what the M was, JIMRA. Anyway, the JIMRA contract is standard in the rest of the world. It's accepted in 70 jurisdictions, but not in the Philippines. So we introduced it last year. We kind of cajoled the banks to sign the contract so that they could do repos among themselves. And that has worked. And now the repo market is approaching the size of the FX swap market. And we think it will overcome, it will become the main part of the money market, which means a more efficient money market. Global Master Repurchase Agreement, that's what JIMRA stands for. So we have that in place. It's working. It's very promising. And then the forward guidance, when we tell you what we might do going forward with the policy rate, we might raise it, we might pause, we might lower it. That's our forward guidance, and that's supposed to affect the yield curve. When we look at the existing yield curve, which is called BVAL, or Bloomberg valuation, it doesn't make sense. When we say when our forward guidance says we might lower the policy rate, the BVAL curve doesn't seem to reflect that. And then the BVAL curve has kinks. In other words, people don't do the usual arbitrage between neighboring maturities that tend to smoothen the yield curve. That happens in many other countries. It doesn't happen here. So we decided to do something through the back door. We decided to emulate what the EU has done. In 2000, as you may remember, the EU decided to switch to a single currency. I think at that time there were 15 jurisdictions that were part of the EU, and so 15 currency, the lira, the Italian lira, the French franc, the German mark. They decided just one currency, which would be the euro or the euro, which left the bond markets fragmented in Europe. So what they did in the EU is they introduced the IRS contract, the interest rate swap contract, which means to take a position, you don't have to buy or sell the whole bond. You just buy this contract, and you're responsible for only the differential between the long rate and the short rate. So the banks have been here. We introduced this contract last year, and the banks have been signing up, and the IRS curve is now, I would say, there are prices up to 5 years, but there's activity mostly at the 6-month maturity and increasingly at the 3-year maturity. So it's beginning to take shape, and it's beginning to look like an effective yield curve in terms of the transmission of the monetary policy. So I think we're making progress, but slow progress. So as I said, we're going to shift from the FX swap to the repo, and then we're going to shift from BVAL to the IRS curve. So to summarize, I think when it comes to inflation, we're doing okay. Growth has stalled, but recovery seems to be on its way. And then the risk remains confidence, whether confidence will come back or not. I think it will. The government is beginning to make some progress in governance reforms. And so if that continues, we should have confidence back this year, sometime this year. So maraming salamat. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Governor Ellie. Good news indeed. We see inflation returning to target target in 2026, 2027. Bad news, economic growth slowed down, but in terms of financial stability, we remain in good shape to withstand shocks, and we're seeing signs of confidence now. Thank you so much for that presentation, Governor Ellie. We will now proceed to the reaction. May we call on the lead economist and SVP of Bank of the Philippine Islands, or BPI. Please welcome Mr. Emilio June S. Neri Jr.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad to be part of this event. I've always been a fan of the MAP and a big fan of course, the governor. How do fans react to a governor? You cheer, right? When you watch a concert. So, since I only have 5 minutes, I'll jump quickly to my reaction. If you want some of my slides, you can scan this. You won't pay BPI anything. You'll get a free copy of my slides. Anyway, first is, I'm glad to see that the governor provided some context on our GDP numbers, that some adjustment had to be done, that we are not comparing apples with apples, but with oranges, so that by the second half of this year, maybe our growth numbers will be a little bit more reliable. We'll be comparing them with better references. Second, of course, I agree with most of his assumptions this year. Inflation will be within target, and the growth will recover in the second semester. I'm sorry I was not able to share my forecast slides with you, but I promise to send it to Arnold later, for our projections. Anyway, I would have wanted to change the title from weakest to competitive. We were actually in good company last year, where high growth economies like Vietnam and India, despite seeing their currencies hit their all-time low, actually performed well in terms of growth. These economies actually were growing at anywhere between 6 to 7%, maybe even higher. So it's not bad to be in company with competitive currency economies like these two. And if we see the exchange rate hit 59.60 or 61, as long as the rate of depreciation is within certain limits, say like 3%, we don't think inflation will run away. Okay. Next. So I did not see the slides of the governor until recently. I thought I would be saying something different, but actually I agree with his assessment that the economy is doing pretty well, and it might not be time to pause just yet. Or it might be time to pause at some point, sorry. But our in-house view is that there will be 2 more cuts before the end of the year to 4%. Hopefully that will be the bottom. Not because I'm a banker, but because I'm concerned about the economy. Okay. So again, I also want to, before we move to the next slide, I want to thank the efforts of the Monetary Board and the Governor for developing all of these benchmarks for pricing our loans, the repo, and the GMRA. This allows us to price your loans more efficiently, given the more efficient yield curve. Okay, so let me now jump to my story about why I think the time to pause is going to happen sometime soon. First is providing you with a historical context. Where is interest rate today? It's at 4.5%. If you look at our history, it looks like it's 2008 to 2021, which was the exception. Where we are today is actually still lower than most of our history. So that means that we are not exactly in a high interest rate environment. We are in a normal interest rate environment. And therefore we should not pressure the BSP to cut too aggressively. And let me point out two things to support that point. Number one is, I'm going to show you the next slide, please. Yeah, so first, I'm sure you've all heard about interest rates being similar to the shot clock in basketball. No? Without the shot clock, basketball will be boring. If interest rates are zero, the economy will be boring. We have to have positive, healthy interest rates. Now, let me move to the next slide. Yeah, so both me and the governor are fans of, unfortunately, Dado Banata, who passed away not too long ago. And the point I want to make here is his invention and innovation, which is very important for business, happened at the time when interest rates were elevated, very high. In fact, double digit for the United States. No? And yet he did very well. Contrast this with Uber. Uber worked in a 2008-2021 environment. They were not efficient. They were losing money for several years. No? So the point I want to make is, in that kind of an environment where interest rates are too low, the Dado Banatas of this world do not really thrive. No? Markets tend to support high growth and become very patient with their lending if interest rates are too low. No? Whereas if it's high or healthy level, is actually encouraging more innovation. So I think Have I run out of time? One more? Okay, one more point I want to make is, in this environment of so much volatility, Trump speed, as some people would call, we need to have, I think, more buffers on our foreign exchange. No? And I don't think the whole Monetary Board agrees, but at 8 months, I think we can add a little bit more, a couple of more months of reserves to buffer ourselves against this massive volatility that we're seeing in the markets these days. So, I think I've run out of time, and you have a copy of my slides, so I hope those will be useful for your reference this afternoon. Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone.
Thank you, Jun, for being on point and being on time. As for our second reactor, we would like to call on stage the Group Economist of SM Investment Corporation, or SMIC. Please welcome Mr. Robert Dan Rosas.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that very good reaction, June. Also, the presentation of Governor Eli, of course, now. So that's our job for this afternoon. Okay, let me leave you with a 3-2-1 framework that we've developed in reaction to the governor's presentation. The first one, of course, first observation is that inflation credibility actually is the strategic asset. Okay, what stands out most is not just the decline in inflation, but the anchoring of expectations. For conglomerates and businesses making multi-year investment decisions, the stability of expectations matter more than the last CPI print at this point, because it's so stable. It's within target. So what the BSP has also restored is actually policy credibility. So that reduces the risk premia. It actually lowers uncertainty in CapEx modeling. Actually, it has made my job much easier. Okay. It helps boards actually commit capital, and from a private sector standpoint, that is not abstract. That's actually strategic for us. Okay. Second observation, growth may have slowed, but the structure matters. Okay. You highlighted the slowdown and the reassessment, excluding the flood control effects. So having said that, that is already priced in terms of what our expectations are. From a corporate perspective, what matters most at this point in time is not just the headline number, but the composition. Okay? If domestic demand remains intact, while distortions are corrected, that suggests the slowdown is actually cyclical. It's not structural. So that distinction gives private capital more confidence. Third observation, markets are responding. We see signs of stabilization. The 10-year yield around nearly 6%, and that's important because it signals inflation credibility. Also that inflation is not an anchoring. So unlike what we saw in the previous several years, at least now we know that inflation and expectations of inflation is actually falling within target. So 10-year yield around 6%, PMI back above 50. So for the benefit of those not familiar with it, any reading above 50 means we are expanding in terms of manufacturing and services. So it's back at 50. Equities are also stabilizing. Financial stability buffers remain strong. You have capital buffers at 6.4%, liquidity buffers at 181%, and then the GIR above $112 billion. So from the vantage point of conglomerate balance sheet, that tells us that systemic risk is actually contained. That allows us to take measured risks. I'd also like to share two strategic observations. The first one is that positive real rates versus investment momentum. So real rates remain positive. That actually reinforces discipline and signals inflation will stay contained. The opportunity now is calibration, this for the businesses. Ensuring real rates support capital deepening in this economy that actually still needs infrastructure, housing, and logistics investments. So this gradual approach actually supports that balance. Second strategic observation, the transmission reform is the quiet structural reform. Your emphasis on the IRS benchmarks and the interbank repo market is important. The deepening repo markets and stronger benchmark curves improve price discovery. So that lowers the term premium over time, or should lower the term premium over time. So for businesses and conglomerates issuing bonds or managing duration risk, this is not actually technical. It's not only technical. It directly affects the cost of capital. So this is true institutional reform. It's not just rate setting. So I guess the question that we have, or a forward-looking question that we have, as we transition from stabilization to recovery, what signals should the private sector watch most closely to gauge whether confidence is becoming self-sustaining? So is it credit growth, core inflation momentum, market liquidity? Knowing those would help align corporate capital allocation with the BSP's calibration phase. So in closing, it's our belief that stability has been restored. The next chapter is actually translating credibility into sustained investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dan, for that presentation. Okay, so now we are at the stage where we will be asking questions to our panelists. But before that, I would like to call on our Q&A co-moderator for today, the chair and founding partner of the Brain Trust Incorporated. Please welcome Dr. Chel Habito. Kindly have a seat, Chel. Now, a brief note here. There are microphones on the phone. There are microphones on the floor. So please use that in asking your questions. Please be brief and please refrain from making a speech. Please wait to be acknowledged by Dr. Habito or myself before you ask your questions.
So also, good afternoon, everyone. As already mentioned by Karen, there are microphones on the floor. You can see where they are and just approach them when you want to ask your question. Again, please be brief when you ask your questions so that we can give maximum chance for everybody who wants to be part of this discussion. So, well, I guess we can kick it off with a question. One question that I might ask, having been, of course, in the position of an economic manager for the country, but ages ago, actually, when things were so different. But at this point, I've always seen the Bangko Sentral under pressure to use monetary policy to counteract problems that were caused on the supply side, on the structural side of the economy. So, Governor Eli, what structural reforms do you still see need to be done so that we can really put the economy on a good footing?
I fully agree with your notion in the beginning when you pointed out the difference between supply and demand. As you know, the BSP only has demand-side tools. We can't do very much about supply. But I think if we achieve our mandate on the inflation side, it does help with the supply side, as Jude and Dan have suggested. On the supply side, I would say we need we still need credible governance reforms, and I feel that's already going on. The best thing for supply, I think, is to have stable prices.
Karen, do you have one question before we open it up to the floor?
Yes, Governor Eli. A lot of the members are actually asking one question, but two-pronged. The first one is if the if we're going to look at the Philippine economy as a balance sheet, what would be its strongest assets and its biggest liabilities? And the second part of the question is, of course, governance. As the chair for the Anti-Money Laundering Council, what can we expect that's going to happen this year going forward? What are the things that we can look forward to?
I'd like to share the questions with June, Dan, and Shell. But in terms of the balance sheet, I think our number one asset is our potential for growth. We still have tremendous potential for growth, I think. And we should take advantage of that potential. What was the other one?
As the chair for the Anti-Money Laundering Council, what's your priority for strengthening governance this year?
The priority of the Anti-Money Laundering Council is to identify the money launderers. And I think we've made progress in that. We've identified something like over 800 individuals who were laundering money, and I think about 25 billion pesos in assets have been frozen, assets that belong to these individuals. These guys, there are 800 of them, but they had something like 8,000 accounts. So now we know how they do it. And so I think we will be more effective going forward. And I think you can expect more individuals identified. The problem we had is we can only do something if the money is in the bank, somewhere. If the money never goes to a bank, it's stored in someone's basement, and then put on a plane, and then delivered to Hong Kong, and exchange for dollars in Hong Kong, then there's very little we can do by ourselves. We'll have to have the help of aviation authorities. We'll have to have the help of those who can look into basements, I think. But we have limited powers, and we're doing the best we can with those limited powers.
Thank you, Governor Eli. Thus, we'll be opening the...
We would welcome questions from the floor right now. Yes.
Thank you, Shell. Governor Remolona, thank you for your presentation. I'm Rex Drulon, Vice Chair of Center for Excellence in Governance. This is not an economics question. You're probably aware that there is widespread but quiet frustration, resentment, and disgust about the shameless and massive corruption that has been going on pala in government for some time now. The magnitudes are just appalling. The question is, Governor, how can billions, hundreds of billions of cash transactions go through Land Bank and its branches without any red flag being raised by the regulators? Isn't our BSP the guardian of the integrity of the financial system? Anyari, sir. Thank you.
I would say that I wish we could be as effective as you wish. You realize we're dealing with cunning criminals, and we have limited powers. For example, we have the most strict bank secrecy in the world, and that makes it difficult for us to look into bank accounts. We can't just look into your bank account. And so if you can revise the law and allow us to have some access to bank accounts, it will really help. But I think, as I said before, we're doing the best we can with the tools we have.
Follow up, Governor. The question is not about secrecy of bank accounts. The question is, how can hundreds of billions go through the tellers without any red flag being raised? And this has been going on for months. How can that escape the notice of AMLA and BSP, Governor?
Babes Singson knows about this. Sorry, Babes. But the money goes from the Bureau of the Treasury. They have an account with the Land Bank, and it's allocated to them for purposes of government infrastructure, government spending, and then it goes to the account of, say, a contractor, and it moves to that account based on some assurance from the Bureau of the Treasury that you should send the money to that account. And once it's in that contractor's account, it's his account. He's allowed to withdraw it, right? What Land Bank can do is ask, what's it for? And then if it's for a government project, there's a presumption of regularity, and that's the end of it. Land Bank maybe did not have any idea that this thing was going on. They were doing their banking business as they always did. The criminals are just so cunning, and now we kind of know what they're doing, and so now that thing is being addressed. But in the past, they didn't know. The banks are already being, I would say, too strict, maybe. If you withdraw more than 500,000 pesos, they ask many, many questions. And that's what we can do. If you have brilliant suggestions, we would welcome them.
I have a question.
We take a question from that side first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Governor Ellie and other esteemed guests, for sharing valuable insights. I'm Mike Makatangay, founder and CEO of 1A Teams Consultants Singapore and co-vice chair of MAP membership. There was a proposal by former Finance Secretary Cesar Purisima to demonetize the 1,000 peso bill, basically to address this issue about this hot money. And of course, I understand that he stated also the reason that it's been done also in some other countries. If I remember, it was done also in Singapore and in India. No? So, Governor, what's your take on this? Is this feasible? And can we do this also to be able to address all this hot money? Thank you.
Cesar is a good friend of mine as well as his wife, Cory. So we took his suggestions very seriously. But it turns out it doesn't really work. Cesar wanted to get rid of the 1,000 peso bill because a lot of the cash that's being laundered is in the form of 1,000 peso bills. But in the experience of other central banks, it doesn't really work. In India, it was a disaster. And in fact, it led to the resignation of the governor of the central bank in India. The RBI governor had to resign. It turns out that this one, in our case, and by the way, in other countries, the Fed also tried to get rid of the $100 bill because that's a currency of choice, a denomination of choice of drug dealers. It didn't work. It didn't work. In our case, it turns out the 1,000 peso bill is used a lot, especially in the provinces, by legitimate businesses. If you get rid of the 1,000 peso bill, it will cause a lot of hardship for people who are doing legitimate businesses and the people they serve. So we looked into it. We decided it actually doesn't make sense. The numbers don't justify it.
Thank you, Governor. God bless the Philippines. God bless BSP. Thank you.
We would like to request people to kind of line up on the back. Yes, please, for microphone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's Lorna Kapunan. It's very hard to appreciate figures, growth figures, when you realize that more than 56 million of our 110 million population are self-rated hungry and self-rated poor. How would we reconcile growth rate? Is it the 10% who control 90% of our wealth getting richer? I'm talking about inclusive growth and inclusive, empowerment of the many millions of our Filipino people. Because sabi nga ng masa natin, hindi naman nakakain ng figures na yan. Does this growth rate consider inclusive growth? As in, does it create jobs? Or is it just our 10% getting richer and the 90% getting stuck in hunger and poverty? Sorry for the question, but I get chest pains if I don't ask questions like this.
I sympathize with your view. I wish we could do more as a central bank. I wish, but we have limited tools. We do look at those numbers. Especially my colleague Romy Bernardo looks at those numbers, and we do care about the poor, but we can only do so much. I'm afraid that's beyond our powers. We worry about inflation rate for the bottom 30%. We worry about the Mahal Mga surveys, where he asks people about self-rated poverty. We worry about that. And then we also find in the same surveys that the number one indicator for people's well-being, when they're asked the question, is inflation. It's the number one indicator. In the same surveys that you mentioned, they do mention inflation as an indicator of their well-being. So at least we can do a little bit, but not too much.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Poch.
Good afternoon, Governor. Poch Macaran is here. The central bank has, by its charter, both a real and a monetary responsibility. That's why when people talk about inflation, they know that the purchasing power is their concern at the level of our consumers. However, as you noted, the movement from stabilization to investment, which is the driver for the long-term growth of the country, has to be explained more to our people. And the OFWs realize that the outside world is very crazy. 3 countries at the top of the world geopolitics are now shaking in their foundations because of the governance structure, the way it is also seen here. How prepared is a central bank the BSP, to make sure that people understand that these global forces do affect them, so that they're not only focused on the corruption inside, but also the unforeseen things that may shock our economy even more?
How prepared is the central bank to explain the global factors?
Can you repeat the question in like one-liner?
Okay. We are focused on internal things that happen as we move from stabilization to investment. Yet we know that there are global forces that need to be explained to our own fellow Filipinos here, so that they understand it is also important for the BSP to be monitoring what is happening abroad and translate them to the language of the people here. OFWs are the main concern. How do we explain to them that what's happening abroad is also being monitored by the central bank, so that we can explain to the people that the burden of the bank is not only on the monetary but also on the real side?
I see. So you want us to do an educational campaign. We do monitor what's going on around the world. We monitor it very carefully. But we monitor those things to the extent that they're relevant to our mandate. We don't have a mandate to educate you. We do our best in relation to monetary policy, but we can't do it with everything. It's not really our job.
Okay, I'm afraid our time is coming up. Maybe we can give way to very quick questions from Cliff and then from June. Yeah, very quick, please.
Good afternoon, Governor and the rest of the panelists. My name is Cliff Iyala. I'm the CEO of BS Works and co-vice chair of the Trade, Tourism and Investments Committee. I'd like to go back to the question of Rex Drilon and the AMLC. I understand that money that does not go into the banking system cannot be tracked and cannot be monitored. But there is money that's dirty money that does go into the banking system. And the AMLC requires, through CTRs and STRs, all this reporting. So my question is, does the AMLC have the tools to detect these money laundering patterns given these daily reports that are being submitted in the form of CTRs and STRs? And if it does not have the tools, is the BSP or the AMLC working on putting on those tools in place? Or else, if it doesn't, that loophole is going to stay there. So I was wondering what you as the chairperson of the AMLC is doing about that problem. Thank you.
Yeah, if you don't mind, let's take the question of June before we ask the governor and the panel to answer, so we can make it quick.
Thank you. Quick comment. Governor Eli and I were classmates in UP. He was #1 in class. Hello. He was #1 in class, Eli. Anyway, my question is, if you crystal ball the future with all the challenges today, when can our country make it a first world country and a first world economy? Thank you. If you crystal ball the future, when can we make it as first world country, first world economy? Crystal balling lang, Eli. Thank you.
I think there was, let me turn the question on whether we have the tools to identify money laundering. We had some tools. and we've succeeded in using them. I would admit that we need more tools. We're getting help from international organizations who've been doing this. But we do need to have better tools than what we have at the moment. It's a learning process. We talk to the banks and we, ex post, we try to figure out what had been done in the effort to launder money. And so we have typologies. So we can identify other people who seem to go through the same typology. We have red flags. So those things help, and those things are being developed further so that our tools become more effective. So we have limitations, but we're trying our best. And then June, what was June's question?
If you crystal ball the future, when can our country make it to the first world and first world economy?
I wish we could be a first world tomorrow. But June, you know how hard it is, right? So I actually thought 20 years ago that with Shell in the government, we would be first world within 10 years. Ang hirap pala, ang hirap. That's the best I can do, June.
Thank you anyway.
Okay. I guess, Karen, we'll have to wind this up. It's beyond 2 o'clock. But I think from what we got from the questions and the answers of the governor is that, again, we all have to realize that the Bangko Sentral can only do so much because it can only have control on the demand side, and not even the entire demand side, more in terms of the money, the amount of money in circulation, which of course is the manifestation of the demand. But the kinds of questions we heard today perhaps are better answered by our economic managers in the cabinet. But indeed, we are comfortable that the Bangko Sentral, the guardians of the so-called lifeblood of the economy, the money and the banking system, is in very good hands. So on that basis, we can still be confident about the future. So I think it was very good that the governor highlighted the positives in what the situation of the economy is right now. Everybody is getting to be so miserable about the kind of news we're getting. But with our green shoots, if you'd like to call it that, the signs of positive development, I think these are more fundamental, and we can look forward in the longer term to eventually get to the point that June Palafox wants us to reach. Indeed, I agree, Governor Eli, that when I happen to be the chief economic planner of the country, I had hoped that within President Ramos's term we could see that, but it's been an elusive goal. So again, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you to the Governor, thank you for June Neri and Dan for joining us. And again, we've been learning a lot, and let's continue to learn together on how to navigate this economy. Thank you very much all.
Thank you so much, Shell. And please kindly stay seated. Thank you for summing up the session. But before we adjourn, I would like to request MAP President Donald Lim and all the other MAP governors present here today to please come up on stage for a photo opportunity.